Let's talk supply chain. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Let's Talk Supply Chain. As always, we're kicking things off with a question. So, today's guest is a passionate advocate for diversity, equity, and inclusion in the trucking industry. But according to the 2023 Women in Trucking Index, what percentage of professional drivers are women? This has historically been a really low number, but I know there's been some change in the last few years. So, what do you think? Well, let us know your guesses over on social and keep listening because all will be revealed at the end of the show. So, today I'm excited to welcome a passionate founder and CEO to our Woman in Supply Chain series, and that is Kameel Gaines. With more than 20 years of expertise in sales and recruiting, Kameel is a formidable presence in the trucking recruitment market and the CEO of Rig on Wheels broker and recruitment services. A successful entrepreneur, Kameel is dedicated to transforming the trucking industry by advocating for diversity, equity, and inclusion. So today, Kameel will be talking all about her career journey, founding her business from her living room, the challenging landscape of the trucking industry, and her vision to change it, and the importance of elevating the representation and success of African American women in trucking. Now, we can't do any of this without our sponsors, so we want to give a shout out to Food Logistics and Supply and Demand Chain Executive for their Woman in Supply Chain Award. Plus, they've got the Woman in Supply Chain Forum coming out or happening in November 2024, and I want to see you all there because I'm going to be there as well. So, welcome to the show, Kameel.
Thank you. Thank you for that warm welcome. That was awesome, Sarah.
I'm so excited to have you here. Now, you're pretty unique as a female founder in trucking, but what I'm even more excited about is that you're a woman after my own heart. You founded your own show, putting the spotlight onto your industry, and it's the first of its kind. So I wanted to say congratulations for putting yourself out there because I know it's not easy. And I can't wait to find out more about you, more about it, how you got to where you are today. And also, you and I had the pleasure just a few months ago to actually meet in person. And I'm so glad that we did. And it's led to this. And I can't wait to learn more. So let's dive in. Like, where did it all begin for you? I love hearing the how it started versus how it's going stories from, our Woman in Supply Chain guests. A couple months ago, I had Kieran Mann on the show. She started off wanting to be a fashion designer and ended up in automotive manufacturing, and that kind of pivot, is so often true for so many women. So what about you? Where did it all begin? Did you know you were going to be in trucking?
No, I'm like so many other, just not just women, just so many other trucking folk, right? It kind of chose me. Now, I've always been in sales and marketing. I've just always been in that niche or that type of industry I've always been in. But and as far as an entrepreneur, right, have dove into those areas quite a bit. But about 15 years ago or so, got laid off in the educational sales era,
Huh.
and my campus closed. Still wanted to do recruiting, answered an ad, and it was about trucking. So I do come from a trucking family, but not enough to know any more than, okay, that's a dry van, obviously. That's a flatbed, obviously. But that would be it,
Right.
right? My Uncle Smitty, he does have these wild stories. He talked about them just as my military uncles would talk about their war stories and things like that. But it that would be the gist of it, right? So that's how it really all began, even before the living room talk. But I started as the only recruiter of Rig on Wheels in the living room before the name Rig on Wheels. I'm not very creative. My mom came up with the name. Okay. My best friend came up with the logo and the color scheme. I'm not a red, black, and white gal. I am a pink and green type gal. But that's literally how it began. Trucking chose me. and
I love that.
falling in love with it.
I love that. Trucking chose me. I feel like supply chain chose me too. So I resonate with that completely. And I'm sure a lot of our audience is going to resonate with that as well, because I feel like even though there are now courses and programs for supply chain and different things like that, I feel like people still kind of fall into it. And then when they fall into it, it's like it chose them. They fall in love. They can never leave. It's just one of
Yeah.
those industries. Now, you mentioned Rig on Wheels, and that's your own business. And
Yeah.
I think you started it back in 2010.
Yes.
So, what made you do that? You talked about a layoff, but like, how did you go from education sales, being laid off, and then I'm going to own my own business in recruitment trucking? And I think it was because, you only had a few years of professional experience in that point, right? So why take the leap into entrepreneurship? What was that experience like itself? Yeah, talk to us about that.
Well, I have had entrepreneur experience before, so
Okay.
I wasn't afraid of it. And then I come from an entrepreneur family, so my
Mm,
mom was an entrepreneur, so I kind of grew up in it. And with her, it's not an hourly thing in my household. As I grew up, it's more of when you get the job done. So you work all day until you get the job done. And that's the mindset of an entrepreneur, to be honest with you. So that's always been my mindset. And I've never enjoyed looking to my left, looking to my right, and making the same income as a coworker. I've never
okay.
enjoyed that. That's not my thing. And especially in sales. And that's the only thing I really have ever done, with the exception of when I worked at the gas station, but we still had quotas when it came to
Yeah, you
lottery.
still have to do sales.
Yeah, so you still doing sales because we had a quota when it was lottery and cigarettes.
Okay, lottery and
And
cigarettes.
cigarettes because it was a full service gas station. So we still had sales there, but that's all I've ever done with sales. So if someone asked me, what something else you would do, it still would have been sales.
Mhm,
So it's just that this industry
mhm.
was new for
Right.
me.
Right.
Sales
But
wasn't
you
new.
also decided to get into recruiting, right? Like it wasn't necessarily just sales that you were doing at Rig on Wheels, it was recruiting for.
Recruiting, which I've done before because I came
Okay.
from education recruiting.
Okay, fair. Yeah.
So it was just the trucking part of it, which is an entire different life. But I've done other type of recruiting before as well. However, like I tell everybody, when they say, oh, well, nursing recruiting is similar. No, nothing is similar to truck driving recruiting. Nothing in supply chain is similar to truck driving recruiting. So let me point that out. So that is where the difference is, to be honest, with the truck driving part of it.
Mhm. So, talk to me a little bit about what you do at Rig on Wheels. What's your vision? What makes you different? Because I know you have a reputation for innovation
Yeah,
and you like taking a driver-centric approach that isn't necessarily the norm in the industry. So, talk to us a little bit about that and how you've built it.
I'm really big on drivers, right? We are a licensed brokerage. We utilize that more with the marketing. If and when we do partner with different companies and they need to utilize the brokerage part, we're there for them with that.
Okay.
So Rig on Wheels has moved loads, but it's more on that aspect of it. And when it comes to that, we are very much an advocate for the professional driver, not the driver, the professional driver.
Okay.
Um, I'm really big in that we've been around now almost 15 years. But with saying that innovation is very important because evolution is coming,
Mhm.
it's here, right? So we want to make sure that our drivers are ready for that. And as much as drivers get a bad rap for stuff, carriers get a bad rap for stuff, It's both sides of the fence that need some work. But what makes us different probably is the way we market things. We take it directly to social media. Yes, we have leads that are your traditional way of doing things,
Mm-hmm.
but the podcast really helps, and it allows the drivers to be able to ask questions live, and it also allows them to text us questions
Oh,
directly to
cool.
our main line. Even once the podcast is done,
Mm-hmm.
they'll text us questions, whether it's from the full length live or if it's from a repurposed reel or short from the YouTube. And we, of course, know where it's from.
Hmm. Awesome.
So that's definitely something that is different because we know recruitment is changing.
Right.
And social media is the new CB for
What's
the,
CB?
when the drivers had a CB inside the truck.
Oh, okay, the CB radio. I have
Yeah,
to ask, right? Because
yeah,
I just want to make
sorry.
sure the audience knows what we're talking about.
Yeah, so because of that, we need to meet our drivers where they are,
So
but
smart.
that's the innovation part,
Mm,
right? So that's just the evolution. It's still the same thing, but it's
mhm,
the evolution and the innovation, as you said it.
mhm.
So
Absolutely.
that's basically what we do. We take the old and mix it with what's going on right now.
I love that because that's the only way to really move the industry forward. Now, I have a question for you. You said you're celebrating almost 15 years. What are you going to do for your big celebration?
I don't know. So I'm really not a rah-rah girl at all. So my team,
Celebrate those wins.
I know, and I'm working on that. My daughter always say, "You don't ever stop and smell a roses, my joy." So I'm working on it. I really am. But what I'm going to do is leave that to my team. They have to figure it out because if they leave me to figure it out, we're just going to go past the 15-year like another day.
No.
I don't know. So they'll figure it out. They'll make it a big woo-ha. I already know it's going to be something
Good.
large.
If the
Um,
team is watching, I want you to know that we want you to celebrate this 15 years because that's a really, really big milestone.
yeah, I'm just excited that they're excited.
Yeah.
That's really what it is. To be honest with you, just I'm a Virgo, the good and the bad. That's really what I really I'm excited that my team is excited.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think the whole industry is going to be excited too. Like it's a big deal. We want to celebrate with you. So let us know how we can do that. Now, you just mentioned your show, the Rig on Wheels show. Now, I believe you launched that last year, which I think is the first of its kind, right? So
Yes,
I think we need to get together separately for a dedicated podcasters chat, maybe. But
yes.
let's talk about what made you want to start the show. And have you like how have you found it? I know you have a master's in marketing, but I know from personal experience, it's not that easy to have your own podcast, have your own show, different things like that. There's a lot to learn, but also there's a lot to do. So talk to me about your show.
Okay, so one of the marketing directors at BCB Live, she approached me and we were talking about it. So that's how it kind of came into fruition, and we got to talking about it. And I basically started educating myself, reading books.
Hmm.
I then would look at other people's show like yours, but instead of looking at it as uh, a spectator, I'm looking to learn.
Hmm.
Like you did something a couple of weeks ago after a show that I said, we need to do that. So now
Okay.
I'm looking through a different lens. So it's always learning. And
Hmm.
that's what we do at Rig on Wheels. So that's the innovative part. We're always exploring.
Hmm.
So it's how can we do this better?
Right.
We want to be better. And will this work for us in our culture and for our clients? Will they like this? Will our audience like this? The
Hmm.
audience that we're trying to attract, will they like this?
Mm-hmm.
We're not looking for perfection, but we are looking for excellence.
Mm-hmm.
So I look at folk show like yours that I do feel like is excellent, and then I look at folk
Thank
show
you.
that I feel like the opposite of excellent,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I try to see what it is I can do better because I want to do it like yours, or I try to see what I can do better because I don't want to do it like theirs.
I love that. So what has the feedback been for your show?
People like it. They
Mhm.
really do. They like it, and I ask people like, tell me what it is you don't like.
Yeah. What
That's
can we do differently? That's always a question that I'm asking people on a consistent basis because I don't know what we don't know, right?
right. What can we do differently? I think my biggest critic is my mom, so I try not to ask her.
My biggest critic is one of my brother-in-laws, and he is the worst. Like, I'm never going to tell him when I'm going to go live ever, ever, ever again.
I was like, oh my goodness. So, but that's what I tend to ask people. What is it that you don't like?
Mhm. Yeah, no, I love that question. And it's kind of the only way to innovate and also make sure that you're creating that value, right? Because at the end of the day, you want to be able to create value in every single thing that you do. You want it to mean something to somebody. Like they want to watch it. It's educational. They're learning something from it, right? So let me ask you about the rise of this type of content in supply chain. Like when I first started Let's Talk supply chain media wasn't really a thing. But its growth has been really incredible. And now we have professionals in what has historically been quite a traditional industry, engaging, learning, communicating like in all these really new ways. And I find it really, really exciting. What do you think? I mean, you came into the industry, you started your company. We've kind of been in the industry, I think, for the same amount of time. So you've seen kind of the trajectories. What do you think?
I think it's cool that people like our boring industry.
It's not boring though.
I think it's boring. I like boring. So let's just start there. But um I think people started noticing it more when the pandemic
Hmm.
because
That's
they
true.
couldn't get their supplies, they couldn't get their luxuries,
Yeah.
and then they couldn't get their necessities. And so when they start hearing the key words supply chain, trucking, logistics, they're like, okay, what does this mean? You know? So I enjoy that and I enjoy talking about it. I
Hmm.
know most people don't enjoy it as much as I do. So I do have to realize that most people don't. At first I was like, well, what do you mean you don't keep talking about it?
Right.
But it hurt my feelings for a while. But it's okay. But what I do, let me say this, because there are so many people that have podcasts or articles and things like that coming out, that means there's a lot of voices and there's
Sure.
a voice for everyone.
Hmm.
That is what is good because everyone identifies with someone else.
Hmm.
You know,
Yeah.
everybody is not going to be attracted to what I say, the way I say it, the way I talk, or they're not interested in recruitment. They're not interested in the retention part of it. And that's what my show is about truck driver recruitment, retention. It's about the news, but it's still in insights, but I still kind of turn it towards the recruitment and retention
Right.
part of trucking
Hmm.
versus somebody else that might be talking about supply chain, the same news, you're going to kind of shift it in a different direction.
Hmm.
So,
It's true.
but
No,
I
and
like
I like that part of it, right? Because you're right. I want to see representation across the industry. I
oh,
want to see folks like professionals, supply chain professionals, the community be able to resonate with the folks that they're watching, they're listening, they're reading from. And there's so much going on a daily basis. We can't cover it all as one person. And I think as long as we're collaborative and we're encouraging and we're empowering and we're not necessarily competing, because I think that's where we get into a lot of trouble as well, right? I think that's really the beauty of it. We don't need to compete to succeed in this industry. We all bring different things to the table, and there's a lot to go around for everybody. And so I hope that we all, just from my perspective, I hope we all keep that in mind, because I really think that it can be a beautiful thing if we
I think it takes
collaborate.
all kind to make a world. Like as my mom says, I like the collaborative space. I think team and collaboration is the only thing that drives. I do believe in capitalism. I believe that to the fullness of my being. However, I believe the only way that capitalism works is through collaboration and teamwork. And with the great thing about our industry is that it's so many ways that you can, even within truck driving recruiting,
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of us within this same space have collaborated together, but our niches are so gravely different.
Right.
Um,
Love to see that.
that
I love
yeah,
that. I love that. Now, I know you're not co-chairwoman anymore, but you have been co-chairwoman at the
mhm.
African American Women's Trucking Association.
Yes, absolutely.
And it's only one of your responsibilities of many. Can you talk to us a little bit about that and about why it's so important to elevate the representation and success of African American women in trucking? And I want to ask you, because I really want to give a platform to this so that we all know that it's out there and
Oh,
what you're doing and why it's important, why people should get involved.
okay. Representation matters. Like Bishop T.D. Jakes says, you can't be what you don't see. Okay.
Yeah.
And if we are wanting Black women and other underrepresented groups of women to be in trucking, it makes it easier when you see them in it. And then there is a support system nurturing behind it that definitely makes it be right there. There is a network to help. There are jobs that are geared towards certain groups to really help that particular community, or not just that one, but other underrepresented communities.
Mm-hmm.
Help them the different equity, that DEI, right? To help in that particular space. So it's a great thing, the networking and the support of it. So just like you said, the representation of seeing yourself as in it, and not just as a truck driver. So
Mm-hmm.
that is what is so great in these different organizations of underrepresented women.
So that's what I wanted to ask you. Is it only women in trucking who are part of that association? Is it
No,
only African American women in there? Are you open up to allies? Because a lot
yeah,
of times,
it's open
well,
to allies. It's
good.
absolutely
Okay.
open to allies. So when you think about women in trucking, just for an example, there are men allies in women in trucking. So it's the same as in African American women.
Mhm. And is it a nonprofit? Like you sort of
Yes.
work on sponsorships and different things like that. So if
Yes,
you
we are.
are an ally organization and you want to look at helping in the development for women in trucking, African American women in trucking, make sure to reach out to these organizations, because it makes a big difference.
Yeah, absolutely. It is a non profit organization that empower African American women.
Awesome. So now let me ask you, as a woman of color in the industry, what have your experiences been? I mean, particularly as a founder, right, in the trucking industry, I can't imagine it's been, easy. I mean, I've been an entrepreneur for what, 7 years, and it's been like the craziest journey of my life. Did you have anybody helping you along the way, or do you maybe have any advice for other up and coming women, African American women looking to build a career in the industry?
I absolutely had help. You can't do this alone.
Mm,
The I I could tell you about two men, three actually, that stand out to me. One being Larry Johnson. He is a third party truck driver and recruitment agency, Sterling Recruiting. He basically mentored me, brought me up in this industry, not just this, I mean, mentored me in life. To be honest, I've been knowing him over 15 years now. My colleague, we do the exact same thing. That's Marcus Moulton. We have the exact same business. And then Robert Pearson, which is the VP of recruitment at Mesilla Valley. So he's definitely a current mentor of mine. But the one that has really helped me out from the beginning, I'm talking, taught me about chassis, spent time teaching me about intermodals, broke down port talk to me, broke down every aspect to me, even helped me talk about the taxes, how to talk to my CPA, how to choose a CPA. That would be Larry Johnson.
hmm. And how did you find the mentors, first of all? And second of all, how did you continue that relationship with them? I get this question all the time, right? So I want to ask you, since you've given such a great shout out to these folks that have helped you, how did you find them? How did you maintain that relationship and sort of like keep them as a mentor?
Well, Larry Johnson is and was the one of, well, was, he was, period, who I was under at the time with subcontracts. Okay, so I was under his umbrella for years when it came for Rig on Wheels. And actually, he took me under his wing, so it was more than just, oh, I was under, Rig on Wheels was under his umbrella and all of that. But he actually took me under his wing and taught me how to grow and scale in the business.
Nice.
So, but it extended, and he didn't have to do that. He had a lot of people. Um, so he did not have to do that at all. But then it extended to more than that. It was literally talk outside of trucking stuff. So it was about my finances. It was
Business.
about business credit. It was a lot. And then Marcus was a colleague, is a colleague, and we do the same business. Been doing it from the same amount of time. In fact, I think he's actually 6 months longer than I have. So we actually just friends, more like a brother to me. And so we talk about a lot of things basically every other day. So that's how that went. So that went on for years before I even met him in person. And then Pearson, that's Robert Pearson. He's one of Rig on Wheels' larger clients. I, and I just make sure I ask questions. He
Mm,
has done a lot within the supply chain or logistics space more than just trucking.
mm.
So he has a wealth of knowledge. And I'm
Well,
like a sponge when it comes to that.
sorry, one of the key things that you said about Marcus was that it went on for a long time and you hadn't even met in person. So I
Yeah.
want to put this out there that we don't need to get caught up in, we have to do an in-person coffee, like we have to do all these things the way that we think that it needs to happen. You had a mentor for years virtually and then eventually met them in person, and that's how you established a relationship. So it can very much be done virtually. Now, one other question I have for you is what kind of advice would you give anybody sort of wanting to walk in your shoes?
Education, learn, go to conferences. And I don't mean your traditional education. Yes, go to college if that's your thing. Yes, I went to college, but what I mean is go to conferences, shake people's hands, have whiskey. I'm not advocate for alcoholism, but I'm just
Or
but
what was it that we had in New Orleans? A margarita.
yeah, and something else with
Right before I spilt it all over myself. Do you remember
yeah,
that? That was the
yeah.
first time we met, and I go ahead and I spill my whole drink on myself, and I get
But
changed within 5 minutes to come back down.
no, it was less than 5 minutes. It was a lot less than 5 minutes. I've never seen anybody change a whole wardrobe like that. You do it for a living, like it was like some type of actress move or something. But you have to do that. You need to educate yourself and then do it not just like I'm in trucking, you're in supply chain. You need to learn across the fence like that.
Mhm.
And then open your eyes to other possibilities because you don't know where your next partner is going to come from. That you just need to open up your possibilities, get out of your comfort zone. That's what I want to tell people. Just get out of your comfort zone. The globe is your landscape. That's what I tell my daughter.
Mhm.
Our backyard is the globe. The world is your backyard.
Mhm.
Not Texas, not Houston. Definitely not.
I love that. Well, and like you said, when you get invited to a networking event, you go to a networking event or things like that, you just never know who you're
Mhm.
going to meet and where it's going to lead. And so keep going, keep doing it, keep meeting people, keep asking questions. I love that. With everything that you've done so far, what are you most proud of? Or maybe what's the biggest lesson you've learned?
I am most proud when my daughter can actually tell somebody exactly what I do.
Woo, woo, woo.
Because there's so many young folk I've realized that don't know what their parents do. And we
Mm,
spend so, and mind you, my daughter will be 21 in a week, but we spend so much of our life doing this, you know, and she can literally talk trucking as if she's been doing it for 5 years.
mhm.
I'm very proud of that.
I love that. I love
Yeah,
that.
that
So,
makes me very proud.
question for you. Last question, I promise. What does the future hold for you? What does the future hold for Rig on Wheels?
I want us to get bigger as far as in marketing, the marketing space. I really want us to take the AI agenda and really just run with it. I just want to see what that holds, especially with the future trucking, the innovation with it, and encompass that with the professional driver and really help the professional driver just become more comfortable with their new role.
I love that. I love that. Well, I can't wait to see what you do and what you work on because you inspire me so much. And it's always inspiring to
Oh,
see
thanks.
women succeeding, right? But not only do you have your own thriving business, you're also advocating for change. You have a vision to make the industry better for everyone. You're putting the driver at the center of everything that you do, advocating for diversity and inclusion. It's really, really needed. So I can't wait to watch how you continue to move the needle, especially for women in the industry. If people want to reach out to you, how can they do that?
Go right to LinkedIn. Kameel Gaines on LinkedIn. You can connect with me right there on LinkedIn. That's the best way.
Awesome. Okay. Well, did you all have a guess at today's big question? Well, at the top of the show, I asked you, according to the 2023 Women in Trucking Index, what percentage of professional drivers are women? Well, it's nearly 12.1%. Now, that sounds a little low, but that number is actually up from only 4.8% in 2021. So we are seeing progress, just not fast enough. If you're keen to hear hear more from us here at Let's Talk Supply Chain. We have plenty more content for you featuring the best and brightest in the industry. Head over to letstalksupplychain.com or check out the latest on YouTube. And remember to come back next week. I'm going to have a pretty fascinating guest coming up, and you won't want to miss it. Well, Kameel, thank you so much for joining me today, sharing your story, and really opening up about the possibilities and the opportunities and what you have in store for you in the future.
Thanks. I'm so glad that you invited me on here. Thank you so much, Sarah.